the silent eyes behind the cage. The alien market was crowded and loud. Creatures from many planets walked between the stalls, shouting and laughing. There were sellers showing shiny weapons, glowing crystals, and robotic pets. But in one dark corner far from the lights was something different. Jace, a human explorer, moved slowly through the market. He had seen many things in space, some amazing, some terrible, but something today felt strange. He turned a corner and stopped. His eyes narrowed. There, inside a small cage made of rusted metal bars, was a girl, not human, not moving. She was sitting with her knees pulled to her chest, thin arms, dirty face. Her skin had a soft silver glow, and her eyes, large and glassy, stared forward without blinking. Around her neck, a thick metal collar with blinking red lights. A slave collar. Jace looked around. No one else seemed to care. People passed by, laughing, drinking, bargaining, but nobody even turned toward the cage. Fat alien trader stood near the cage. He saw Jace staring. "Huh, you like her?" The trader laughed. "She's useless. Can't speak, doesn't listen, just sits and stares. Good for nothing." Jace said nothing. He stepped closer to the bars. The girl didn't react. She didn't flinch or move away. Her eyes simply locked onto his. They weren't begging eyes. They weren't scared. They were silent. They were tired. They were full of pain. "She looks young," Jace said softly. The trader shrugged. "Who knows? We found her on a junk freighter. Some pirates dropped her off. She's not worth feeding." Jace bent down. "What's your name?" he asked gently. The girl blinked slowly. Her lips didn't move. "She won't talk," the trader chuckled. Maybe the collar broke her voice. Maybe her mind. Some aliens don't last long in chains. Jace frowned. "Why is she on display like this?" "To sell, of course," the trader said. "Even trash has a price. Someone might want her, maybe for cleaning, or maybe just as a decoration. You never know with rich types." Jace felt sick. He had seen war. He had seen people die. But something about this girl, chained, caged, and ignored, hit a part of his heart that he didn't know still hurt. "Has anyone tried to buy her?" Jace asked. The trader snorted. "Not a single offer. Not even a credit. People want strong slaves, fighters, workers. She's just broken." Jace looked back at her. Still, she didn't speak. Still, she didn't move. But something in her eyes, something quiet, something deep, reached out to him. He stood up, straight. "What's the price?" The trader raised an eyebrow. "You serious? You want that?" "I asked the price." The trader scratched his chin. 100 credits, just to make it worth my time." Jace looked at the cage one last time. He turned and walked away. The trader laughed. "That's what I thought." But Jace didn't leave. The market. He waited until night. Hours passed. The crowd thinned. The lights dimmed. Most of the stalls closed. Jace returned, careful and quiet. The trader was asleep, snoring loudly. The girl was still inside the cage, exactly where he had left her. He bent down again, this time even closer. He whispered, "I'm sorry I left earlier. I just needed to think." She didn't reply. Jace opened his pack and pulled out a small protein bar. He unwrapped it and pushed it slowly between the bars. The girl looked down. She didn't move. "Please," he whispered. "Eat something. Just a little." She stared at it for a few seconds. Then slowly she reached forward with shaking fingers. She took the bar. She didn't bite right away. She sniffed it like an animal. Then carefully she chewed. Tears filled Jace's eyes. He didn't know her name, didn't know her story. But he knew one thing. She wasn't trash. She wasn't broken. She was a person. And no one else had seen it. But him. Tomorrow he would come back, and tomorrow he would not leave alone. The room was quiet. Too quiet. Jace had brought her to his small ship. The door locked behind them with a soft click. She didn't flinch. She didn't speak. She didn't ask where she was. She just stood still, like a ghost in chains that no one else could see. He had carried her after paying the trader. Her legs were too weak, her body too thin, and now, standing in the middle of his dim ship's hallway, she looked completely lost. Jace moved slowly, careful not to scare her. "This is safe," he said gently. "You're free now. No one will hurt you. Here." Still no words, but this time her head turned slightly toward his voice. "Progress?" He walked ahead, then pointed to the small side room. "That's a warm bath. You can clean yourself there. I left clothes, soft ones." The girl looked at the doorway, then at him, then down at her feet. Her fingers moved, tightened, loosened. She wasn't chained anymore. But her body didn't believe it yet. Jace didn't wait. He turned around to give her privacy. "Take your time. I'll be in the next room if you need anything." She didn't speak, but behind him he heard a slow, quiet shuffle. She was moving. An hour later, she stepped out. Her silver-gray skin now clean, glowing faintly under the ship's lights. Her hair was wet. She wore the simple shirt and pants he had left, but they hung loose on her skinny frame. She didn't look like a warrior, she looked like a survivor. Jace stood up. He had placed warm food on a tray, a bowl of broth, bread, a small fruit. She paused, unsure. He backed away, showing his hands. "It's yours." Slowly, she walked over, sat on the floor. She didn't even look at the chair. Then she began to eat. Every bite was small, careful, as if the food might disappear, as if she would be punished for eating too much. He didn't interrupt. He just watched, not staring, just quietly observing, trying to understand. After a while, she finished. Her eyes lifted. They met his again. Still no words. But something was different now. Her eyes were softer, not pleading, not begging, just curious. Jace smiled a little. "You're safe here, I promise. I don't know what they did to you, but it's over now." She tilted her head just slightly. He decided to try something. "My name is Jace," he said, tapping his chest. "Ja-si." He pointed to her gently. "You?" "Nothing." "But..." Her fingers touched the collar still locked on her neck. She tapped it twice. Slowly. Jace leaned closer. "Is that why you don't talk?" She nodded. "Once." A clear answer. His smile faded. "They put a voice block in it, didn't they?" Her eyes said yes. His hands clenched into fists. He stood, walked to a small storage box, and pulled out a toolkit. "I can fix that. It might take time, but I can do it." She looked unsure. She pulled back, guarding her neck like she expected pain. "I won't hurt you," he said gently. "I just want to help." For a moment, she didn't move. Then, she lowered her hands, bit by bit, slowly, letting him near. Jace knelt beside her and began scanning the collar. It was old tech, but not impossible. As he worked, she stayed completely still except for her eyes, always watching his hands. "You're very brave," he said softly. "Most people would scream, run, but you're strong." He wasn't sure if she understood, but he meant every word. The scanner beeped. He found the control point. 1 second. He pressed a button. The collar clicked. Her eyes widened. The red light blinked once, then went dark. He stepped back. "You're free now," he whispered. She raised a hand to her throat, then opened her mouth. Nothing came out. She tried again. Still silence. Jace quickly explained. "Your voice might need time. Muscles. Nerves. Just try slowly. It's okay." She lowered her head, disappointed, but not angry. Jace stood and walked, away again, giving her space. Then a sound, soft, weak, but real. The "enk." He froze. turned around. She looked up at him, lips shaking, tears in her eyes. You, she whispered again. It was broken, almost painful, but to Jace it was the most powerful thing he had ever heard. The next morning, Jace was already awake. He hadn't slept much. He sat in the cockpit staring out at the stars. Quiet hums of the ship surrounded him. Behind him, down the narrow hallway, she was sleeping, peacefully, at last. But peace, Jace knew, always came with a price. The collar was off. Her voice had returned, barely. But now she was his responsibility, and the black market didn't forget stolen property, even if you paid for it. The alien slave traders didn't care about kindness. They cared about control, and if they found out where she was now. He stood up and grabbed his coat. The bazaar was waking up when Jace returned. Shops opened. Smells of hot food drifted through the air. He moved quickly through the crowd until he found the stall. The same stall. The fat alien trader was there again, chewing something greasy. The trader saw him and laughed. "Back so soon, human? Don't tell me she already died." Jace kept his voice calm. "No, she's alive." "Surprising," the trader said. She looked half dead. "To me, you want a refund?" "I want the paperwork." The trader blinked. "What?" "The proof of sale. The chain code. Anything that says she's mine now." The alien leaned back. "Why do you care? You got her for next to nothing." Jace stepped closer. "Because I don't want her hunted." The trader's grin faded. "Look, she's not important enough for that. You bought her legally. No one's asking questions." "Until they do," Jace said. "I want the documents." The trader sighed, rummaged through an old device and tapped a few buttons. A thin card slid out. Glowing symbols lit up the surface. Transfer of ownership. One line, one signature. Jace took it. The trader leaned in. "You know she was part of a batch we weren't supposed to have, right?" Jace didn't blink. "What do you mean?" The alien glanced around and lowered his voice. "Off-world shipment, quiet deals. Some slaves came from a research planet, high value, experimental. But her, she was broken. Didn't respond. Useless." "Research planet?" Jace repeated. The trader shrugged. "Word is, those kids were bred for something. Powers. Weapons. Who knows? She's trash now. No danger." Jace turned around without another word and walked away, but his hands were cold. What had they done to her? Back on the ship, she was awake, sitting on the floor near the small window. Sunlight from a nearby star lit her silver hair. She looked peaceful until she saw his face. She tensed. He knelt beside her and held out the card. "This says you're free. It's yours now." She stared at the glowing paper. Her fingers didn't reach for it. "You're not property anymore," he said. Finally, she reached out, touched it, but instead of taking it, she pushed it back to him. Jace was confused. Why? Her voice was small, still cracked, but clear enough to understand. "Don't want to own myself. I want to be someone." Jace's heart tightened. He gently closed her hand over the paper. "Then keep this. Not because you're owned, but because you choose to stay. With me." Her eyes filled with tears, not from fear, but from hope. Hours passed. Jace set a course to leave the sector. But just as he was about to activate the jump, drive, a red light flashed. Incoming signal. He opened it. A deep alien voice spoke. "To the human who took property from Sector 9, return the subject. She is not yours." Jace froze. Another message arrived. "This is your only warning. She belongs to us. Give her back, or we take her." His hands tightened on the controls. He looked back. She was standing silently in the hallway. She had heard. Her body trembled, but she didn't step back. She whispered, "You should give me back. It's safer." Jace shook his head. "No, you could die," she said. "I know." he replied. She stared at him, then walked closer. She held the paper in her hands, the proof of freedom. This time she pressed it to her chest. Stay. Jace turned back to the controls. Then we fight if we have to. He punched the throttle. The stars blurred as the ship jumped into light. She had an entire room now. 4 clean walls, a soft bed, a folded blanket, a tiny light on the ceiling that hummed gently. But she didn't sleep in the bed. Instead, she curled up on the cold floor, her back against the wall, knees tucked to her chest, just like in the cage. Jace noticed, on the first night, but he didn't say anything. On the second night, he placed a pillow beside her while she was asleep. On the third night, she pushed it aside. By the fourth night, Jace sat outside her room, head resting against the metal wall, asking himself the question he was afraid to say out loud. How do you teach someone they deserve comfort, when all they've ever known is chains? The next morning, she sat at the small metal table eating quietly. Her movements were robotic, no wasted motion, just survival. Jace prepared something special that day. He used old supplies from Earth, real tea, not synthesized. Warm, soothing. Placed a steaming cup in front of her. She blinked at it. What's this? She asked, voice still soft but clearer than before. It's called tea, Jace said. It's gentle. Humans drink it to feel calm. To feel home. She stared at the cup for a long moment, then picked it up with both hands. She didn't drink, just held it close, letting the warmth touch her fingers. Then she whispered something unexpected. I never had a home. Jace sat across from her. You do now, if you want it. She didn't answer, but her eyes didn't look away. That evening, Jace tried again. He stood in the doorway of her room, watching as she spread the blanket on the floor again. You know, he said gently, the bed's not dangerous. She didn't turn around. He stepped inside, knelt next to her. I can lie down first if you want. You'll see. Her hands froze. Then slowly she nodded. Jace stood, walked to the bed, and laid on top of it, fully clothed, hands behind his head, staring at the ceiling. It's soft, he said with a small smile, and it doesn't bite. She watched, from the floor. Jace sat up and patted the other side. You can try just for a few seconds. She hesitated. Her feet didn't move, but her eyes, full of hesitation and fear, shifted. Then, like a whisper in the wind, she stood. 1 step, then 2. Then, carefully, she sat on the edge of the bed. Her hands clutched the blanket. This is warm, she murmured. Jace smiled. Beds usually are. She nodded once and laid down, body stiff like she was ready to jump at any sound. You can sleep here. Every night it's yours. Mine. Yes, he said. Not because you're owned, but because you belong somewhere. Here. She closed her eyes. Not to sleep, but just to rest. Minutes passed. Then, can I ask you something? She whispered. Of course. Why? Are you kind to me? Jace took a deep breath. Because no one else was. Later that night, alarms buzzed. Jace rushed to the control room. A signal was trying to break into the ship's comms. Not pirates, not bounty hunters, something worse. Encrypted. Silent. He tapped into the feed. A static-filled image appeared. A tall alien in uniform. Dark armor. Glowing red eyes. Subject number 47 has been located. Retrieval teams en route. The message cut off. Jace stared at the screen. Subject number 47? He turned to the hallway. She was standing there, barefoot, wrapped in the same blanket. You heard it? He asked. She nodded. Her lips trembled. I don't want to be a subject. I just want to be me. Jace stood, walked to her, and knelt. Then, we'll make sure that you're not going back. Ever. She looked up at him, and for the first time, she reached forward and held his hand. The ship was quiet. Too quiet. Jace noticed it first thing in the morning. The hum of the engine was normal. The lights were normal. But something felt wrong. She wasn't in the hallway, not near the window, not in her room. His heart skipped. He dropped the datapad in his hand and ran. "Liari?" He called softly. That was the name she had whispered once, just once, when half asleep. He never forced her to use it again. But now, he needed her to hear it. No answer. He checked the food, bay, the med station, still nothing. Finally, the storage room door was half open. Inside, he found her, kneeling, her forehead pressed to the cold floor, hands shaking. Jace rushed in. "Are you hurt?" She didn't lift her head. Her voice came so soft he almost missed it. "I saw them." Again. He froze. "The ones from before?" He asked gently. She nodded slowly. "In my dream," she whispered. "They cut open my mind. They didn't want a person. They wanted a tool." Jace knelt beside her. "You're not a tool. You're not what they made you. You're more." She raised her head, tears in her eyes. "But what if I break again?" Jace reached out. "Then I'll fix you, as many times as it takes." She stared at his hand, then placed her own in his, cold, trembling. "I don't want to be afraid," she whispered. That same day, Jace set the ship to drift. No engines, no signal, just hidden in the shadows of an asteroid belt. Safe, for now. He made soup and left it on the table, just like always. But today, he didn't sit near her. He gave her space. Still, she watched him from the corner of her eye. She wanted to say something but couldn't. She held the spoon tight in her hand, staring into the warm broth like it held all her memories. "Then," she whispered, "do you believe I can heal?" Jace looked up. The spoon nearly dropped from his fingers. She had spoken, clearly, without pause. It wasn't just survival anymore. It was a question of hope. "I do," he said without thinking. "I believe it more than anything." She looked down. "Even if I'm still broken inside?" "You're not broken," he said gently. "You were hurt. There's a difference." For a long time, she sat in silence. Then, "Liari," she said softly. Jace blinked. "What?" "My name," she repeated a little stronger. "Liari." He smiled. "That's a beautiful name." She smiled too, shy and small but real. Later that night, she walked to the control room. Jace was looking at a star map. She sat beside him without a word. For the first time, it felt natural. No fear, no cold, just quiet company. She glanced at the stars and asked, "What's that one?" He showed her. "That's Altara 6, a water planet. Peaceful. Have you been there?" He nodded. "Twice, you'd like it. Lots of blue oceans, warm winds." She closed her eyes, imagining it. "Maybe one day, we go together?" He looked at her, surprised, then smiled. "Yeah, I'd like that." There was a pause. Then she asked, "Can I ask you something strange?" "Of course. If I had never looked at you back in the cage, would you still have noticed me?" He thought for a second. "Your eyes didn't scream," he said. "They didn't beg, but they spoke, louder than voices." She blinked. Tears welled again. This time, not from fear, from being seen. That night, Liari finally lay on the bed, not just to rest, but to sleep. A real sleep. Her breathing was calm. Her hands didn't clutch the blanket like a shield. Jace stood at the door for a moment, watching, then turned away, letting her dream in peace. The stars outside were quiet, but danger was not far. Jace had noticed it hours ago, a signal, faint and cold, chasing behind their trail like a shadow with teeth. He didn't tell Lyari. Not yet. She had smiled that morning. A small, honest smile, her first. He didn't want to take that away, but deep inside he knew something was coming. By midday, she was helping him clean the old tools in the ship's workshop. Her hands were still unsure, her fingers still slow, but there was curiosity in her eyes. "What's this?" she asked, pointing to a laser torch. "Very dangerous," Jace said, pretending to be serious. "Also useful for making toast." She giggled softly. He froze for a second. She had never laughed before. He smiled. "We'll keep that between us." But just then, the lights flickered. The ship's soft hum skipped like a heartbeat. Then a voice cracked over the comms. "Vessel 374, halt engines. You are in possession of classified property. Surrender now." Lyari dropped the tool. It hit the floor with a sharp clang. Her face turned pale. Jace stepped in front of her, calm but tense. "Ignore it," he said. "They can't board us without permission." But the voice returned, cold and sharp. "If you do not comply, we will breach your hull. Countdown begins now. 10, 9, 8. Jace ran to the control deck. Lyari followed, breathing fast. He slammed the controls, turning off the external signal. Silence. Then he activated the cloaking shield. The ship faded into darkness, hiding in the shadows of a nearby asteroid field. "Will it hold?" she asked. "Maybe," Jace answered. "If we're lucky." Her voice cracked. "They always find me." He turned to her. "They won't this time." She backed into the wall. "You don't understand. I was part of something secret. They put things in my head, broke parts of me, made me see fire even when there was none." Jay stepped closer. "You're not what they made you, you're what you choose now." She looked at him. Her hands trembled. "But what if I hurt you one day?" she whispered. "What if I become like them?" "You won't," he said. "How? Do you know?" "Because," Jace said slowly, "you held my hand when you were scared. Monsters don't do that." Outside, a dark ship hovered in the distance, bigger, stronger. Inside, Lyari sat alone near the ship's window, her arms wrapped around her legs. Her thoughts raced. She had come so far, from the cage, from silence. But now the past had found her. She stared into the stars. "I don't want to run forever," she whispered. Suddenly, the emergency lights blinked red. An alert rang out. "External. Pressure detected. Hull breach in progress." Jace rushed in. "They're forcing their way in," he shouted. He grabbed a weapon. Not a blaster, a shock stick. Non-lethal, but enough to stun. He handed Lyari a smaller one. She shook her head. "I can't." "You can," he said. "You're stronger than you think." Her hands tightened around the handle. Then with a deep breath, she nodded. The ship's cargo bay exploded open. 2 armored figures stepped inside, silent, faceless, holding neural rods. Jace moved first, slamming his shock stick into the lead attacker's chest. Sparks flew. The figure dropped. But the second rushed past him, straight for Lyari. She stood frozen. Then, a scream, but not of fear, of anger. Her voice rose, not loud, but sharp, piercing. Something inside her lit up. The attacker froze, just for a moment, and in that moment she moved, striking with the shock rod, her swing full of memory and pain. The enemy dropped. Jace stared at her, eyes wide. "What was that?" She looked at her hand, stunned. "I don't know. It came from inside." Jace smiled. "Remind me not to make you angry." Later, the ship floated silently again. The invaders were gone, ejected into space, unconscious. Jace sat, with Lyari near the window once more. Her hair was messy, her hands bruised, but she was glowing, not with power, with peace. "You were amazing," Jace said. She leaned her head against his shoulder. "I don't want to be a weapon," she whispered. "You're not," he said. "You're someone's reason to fight." She closed her eyes. And for the first time, she slept without fear. She stood at the edge of the planet's surface, bare feet on soft alien soil for the first time. No chains, no collar, no fear. Above her, the sky was a deep violet, filled with stars. Behind her, the ship was silent, waiting. And beside her stood the man who had changed everything, Jace. Liari closed her eyes and listened. Not for voices from the past, not for pain, not for orders, but for the wind. It whispered something new. Freedom. 3. Days had passed since the attack. Jace had flown them to a small neutral world. Peaceful, untouched, a hidden place where old soldiers and forgotten survivors came to rest. No one here asked questions. No one cared where you came from. Only who you chose to be now, he told her. We don't have to run anymore. She had smiled. But that night she stayed awake, lying on the soft bed he had given her. Not afraid, just thinking. Who was she now? Not a subject, not an experiment, not a slave, but still not whole. The next morning, a local government ship arrived. Jace greeted them calmly. I'd like to register a refugee under my protection. The officer looked past him and saw her, small, quiet, standing with her shoulders back. Name? The officer asked. Liari stepped forward. Her voice didn't shake. Liari. The officer nodded, typing on a small screen. Species? I don't know, she said honestly. They never told me. The officer paused, then looked up. Do you want to register with the name given to you or choose a new one? She turned to Jace. He didn't speak. He just smiled. She looked back at the officer. I'll keep the name I gave myself, she said, because I earned it. The officer stamped the document. She was now officially free. That evening, they sat near the edge of a cliff watching two suns set together. Liari turned to him. You could have left me back in the market. I didn't want to, Jace replied. But why me? She asked. There were thousands suffering. Why stop for one silent girl in a cage? He looked at her for a long moment, then said quietly, because you were the only one not begging. The only one who had nothing to say, but said everything with your eyes. She looked away, tears building again. People used to look at me and only see what they wanted, she whispered. A servant, a weapon, a mistake. What do I see? He asked gently. She smiled, blinking through tears. You see me. The next day she made a choice. She asked to join the local peace registry, not as a refugee, not as a victim, as a guardian. A guardian? Jace asked, surprised. I want to help others like me, she said. No one should stay in a cage just because the world forgot them. He smiled. You're braver than most soldiers I've met. She touched his hand. I learned from the best. Months passed. Liari grew stronger. Her body healed, her voice full. She learned languages, studied tech, trained in hand-to-hand combat. But her favorite time was still the evenings, when she and Jace walked under the stars, no words needed. One night she stood on the balcony of their small home and whispered, into the wind. I was a slave. I was forgotten. But now, I have a name. I have a purpose. I have someone. Behind her, Jace stepped forward and wrapped a soft scarf around her shoulders. She leaned back into him. And together, they watched. The galaxy stretched far beyond them, no longer as prisoner and protector, but as equals, as survivors, as something more.